listening to the Pharmacist Answers podcast. I'm Cynthia, the pharmacist, and today you'll get your questions answered and your curiosity cured.
Today, I wanted to talk about medication disposal, and there's all kinds of times when people will come to the pharmacy and they'll bring me a prescription bottle and be like, my doctor told me that I'm not supposed to take this anymore, but I still got pills in this bottle. What do I need to do with them? A lot of states do not allow pharmacies to just take medication that wasn't originally dispensed by them. But there's a whole lot of reasons why a pharmacy just can't take back medicine that people don't want anymore. The widespread advice is like, oh, just flush your pills if you don't need them anymore. But that's not safe. People are being so much more mindful about what goes into our water, what goes into our environment, what goes, down our drains, because it ends up, especially if you're in the city and you're dependent on city water, anything that ends up in your water is eventually, possibly can end up in your environment and end up back affecting you in some way or form. So the idea of flushing it is not the best option. Now, there are some medications that the FDA and the EPA agree on that we would prefer you flush it and it get dispersed and become slightly less harmful than for it to end up in the trash and a kid to eat it, or somebody end up rummaging through your trash and taking it and them being hurt or killed by medication because they didn't know any better, or potentially being delinquent and just looking for drugs in trash, because people do that if they're addicted. So there's some drugs that they would prefer you to send down the drain and get completely out of your house and completely dissolved and disposed of, rather than them going in the trash, waiting to go be taken off to a landfill, and then somebody potentially getting it and being harmed. So that's kind of the pros and cons. Do you want somebody to die right now, or do we just want to have it potentially end up in their environment, but it'll be much more dispersed? So what types of medications specifically? So it's usually like extended release pain medications. So really strong narcotics, extended release morphine, extended release oxycodone, fentanyl patches, which is a medication-filled patch that people wear for 3 days. And there's been stories that I've heard of in pharmacy news and stuff where grandma threw away her pain patch because the 3 days was up, and opiates in general. And some kid ended up sucking on it. And because it's a very potent medication, like something just simple as that can kill somebody. Especially a kid. So you don't want those things to end up in the wrong hands. So the FDA, the EPA, they kind of agree. We would prefer you to send these into the water system and let the water system try to filter out as much as possible before your water gets back to you, versus them ending up in the trash and a kid or an animal or a person with a bad habit and poor self-discipline getting it and being harmed. The home remedy that we advise people to use, you take the pills that you don't want to use anymore, whether they're in tablet form or capsule form. You can even do this with liquids. Liquids, you don't have to go through the crushing process, but capsules, you can open them up, or tablets you can crush up in a ziplock bag, and you add water to it. So then it dissolves in the water. And then you add sand or cat litter, like kitty litter, to the water. Especially kitty litter, because kitty litter, like the goal of the kitty litter is to absorb the moisture and kind of like hold it together and clump it up. So the water that has the medication dissolved in it soaks into those particles of kitty litter, and then the kitty litter traps it. I took care of my in-laws with hospice help in my home, and the RN used my coffee grounds to dump the morphine in. Yes. And so you want something that's going to absorb it, and make it not very tasty for somebody else to try to eat or suck on to get the drugs out. But two, it also makes it more difficult for that medication to leach out into the surrounding environment too. So the kitty litter soaks up that drug, the water with the drug in it, and then if that goes in the landfill, then however long it's going to take that kitty litter to dissolve is going to be how long it's going to take for that medication to leach out. So that's the homemade way to dispose of your medication. The best way to do it, one, to protect the environment for a lot longer than you might just like putting it in the water system, but two, also protecting other people who may inadvertently stumble upon whatever. Plus, I mean, kitty litter is not attractive to anybody, really. There are also bags that you can buy at pharmacies and certain retailers that are called Metaway bags. Should labels be destroyed separately from the bottle? Yes, if you want your information and your privacy to be protected, getting rid of the labels, one, for your information, but two, if you've got a label that says that you took Percocet, even if it was like because you broke your arm and you only had to use it for a week, if someone delinquent or that has a bad habit or an addiction sees that label in your trash, then they're more likely to go through your trash and they're more likely to try to break into your house thinking that you've got more. So disposing of that label, either marking it all out so nobody can read it, or taking the label off the bottle or the package and sending it through your shredder with your other protected information is a good idea. I even do that with my kids. Like if it's an antibiotic, I just rip the label off and send it through the shredder and then throw the bottle away. Just because of privacy, protecting, because it's got their name on it, it's got my address on it. I don't want that information out, and that's just me. So, but there's these Metaway bags that actually have this kind of activated charcoal substance in it, just like the kitty litter that you can do like just as a home remedy to do this. You put the pills in it, you add a little bit of warm water, and then that activated charcoal substance deactivates the medication and like clumps it up. And adsorption, which is different from absorption. Absorption means that it soaks in. Adsorption means that it just sticks to it and won't let it go. Like an adhesive, this activated charcoal compound that's in there adsorbs the drug and holds on to it so tight that nothing else can like soak it out. So then it's inside this bag, you zip it up, and then that bag can go in the trash. So that way, again, it's not palatable, it doesn't look tasty or attractive to anybody, and you can't actually get that medication back out of that substance. The little bags, they're like $4, and I think it'll hold, I think it's like 45 pills or like 6 ounces of liquid or whatever. So, because liquid medications have to be disposed of too, because some pain medications do come in liquid form. That's another way that you could do it. The big thing that the DEA has started doing is a prescription take back. What about syringes? Syringes that have medicine in them, or just syringes that have been used? Because some syringes come pre-filled, like injectable medications are like in a pre-filled syringe, and then other things like insulin you draw up in a syringe. For syringe disposal, you can buy a sharps container at a pharmacy. It's real small that you can dispose of, and then it comes with all the instructions and the packing material and the paid postage label for when it's full. You seal it up, stick it in the bag, label it, and send it off to the sharps people, and then they dispose of it, and it meets all of the biohazard crazy requirements. They make sure that all of the prepaid stuff that you get in the package meets that so it can safely go through the mail. Another way to dispose of needles is to actually take an empty milk jug. Some people go through the step of actually breaking the needle. You have to be careful doing that, or at least detaching the needle from the syringe, because you can end up re-sticking yourself in a way that you don't want to, and so that's not good. But taking an empty milk jug and putting them in the empty milk jug the way you would a sharps container, and then putting that in the trash, that way anyone who handles your trash is not at risk of being stuck by a loose needle anywhere. But it doesn't necessarily stop anyone, again, that may be delinquent or have an addiction from finding your needles and trying to reuse your used needles. So finding a way to make them defective either by detaching the needle or breaking the needle off so that the syringe isn't usable. Because I think most insulin syringes are like all in one. You can't really, it's not like a needle that you put on and off a syringe the way some others are. Yeah, don't put that milk jug in the recycling bin. You would want that particular jug with the syringes to go in the trash. So you don't get to recycle that particular one, but that one plastic jug or paper carton of some kind of container that they can go in, that they're not going to easily poke through, but also that is going to be opaque, so people can't just like see a clear plastic container and be like, oh, this is full of syringes. Most milk containers are opaque to protect it from light now. They don't make many clear ones anymore. Yeah, a protective container, something that you can stick them in, that you can't easily reach in and pull them back out, and then that has some way to seal it at the top so they won't spill. DEA has a National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. Law enforcement agencies all across the country set up a collection station where people can bring prescription drugs of all kinds, narcotics, non-narcotics, injectables, anything that was prescribed. Some places even take non-prescription drugs, but like expired over-the-counter medications that you don't want to take anymore. Some people take expired over-the-counter medications. I'm lenient on the window of expiration on that. Just have to use some wisdom and some logical reasoning on choosing whether or not to take it expired or not. But they will take these back and then they ship them off to be disposed of completely and safely. So you can go to the DEA website, which is DEAdiversion.usdoj, which stands for U.S. Department of Justice.gov. And there's a little search box. You can type in your zip code, or you can type in your county and your city and state, and it will give you the locations that are going to be active on that day to take medications back from patients and anybody. So disposing of medications that are unused. People will hold on to medications and dispose of the medications if they've had a deceased family member and they have medications left over. There's all kinds of reasons why you may have medicines that you're not taking anymore that you need to get rid of. And so they choose to do this. Again, you don't want it in the trash. You don't want somebody who can be harmed by it, whether they have an addiction and they're drug hunting, or if it's a kid or an animal or somebody that gets into it by accident. You don't want them hurt, so that's why they choose to do this. If you do the search for your location, it should tell you the details if they're going to take narcotic medications or if they're not going to take narcotic medications. Some places choose not to because their shipment and disposal requires a whole new level of regulation and licensing to be able to take them back and then ship them to whoever they go to. So some places may not have that type of licensing in place. I searched like a couple of different zip codes, and like my county, even though we're out in the boonies, our county sheriff's office and then the criminal investigations unit, they're right across the street from each other, kind of. They're both locations for the Take Back Day, and one place is taking narcotics and then the other one isn't. Probably because the criminal investigation department has the licensing to manage controlled substances, because that's usually the drugs that are involved in crimes, if that makes sense. So you just have to check, and it'll have all those details in their thing. You usually will have like a check mark that says narcotics, or it'll have like the little international symbol for no, the circle with the slash through it that says no narcotics. So you can look that up and find that out and spread the word, tell your friends. Again, especially if you've had to take care of family members, if you had to take medication for a reason but now you're not taking it anymore, there's a whole gamut of reasons why somebody may have medications that you're not using, and it's better to have them gotten rid of and out of your house rather than them being in your house and one, putting you at risk for crimes if they're a high sought out medication, or if they can be potentially harmful or dangerous to somebody who accidentally takes it. You want to get rid of those and to keep everybody safe. So that is basically it. Again, they do kind of weigh the pros and cons of saying some of these narcotic medications, if you're not able to save them and get them to a take back day, they do say it's better to flush these and get them out of the reach of somebody that could be hurt by them versus hanging on to them and trying to give them to the agencies that are taking them back. But because some places do have a constant take back program, but not very many. Again, because it requires a lot of licensing and there's regulations that go into that to be able to store, keep, and then ship prescription medications of all kinds. So we want people to be safe. We want you to be safe. We want your family members to be safe. Stone raccoons aren't funny. Okay, that was my husband. You know, people love their pets just as much as they love their kids sometimes, so you don't want your pets eating it either. You don't want to be the neighbor that killed the other neighbor's dog because they got in your trash. As a summary, certain drugs, it's better to flush them than to save them because they could be very dangerous in just one pill or just one dose for people who may accidentally encounter them. So the EPA is kind of okay with you flushing those. Use sand or coffee grounds or cat litter to crush up and dissolve your unwanted medications, put it in a plastic bag, and put it in your trash. That way it doesn't look tasty to anybody. You can buy Medaway bags at retailers that have a specialized compound that deactivates the drugs when you put them in there and add water. That goes in a plastic bag. That can also go in your trash. Again, doesn't look very tasty to anybody who wants. And then the National Prescription Drug Take Back Day. And then we talked a little bit about syringes. If you have to dispose of syringes because you do injections, you can buy a Sharps container at retail pharmacies. And then it gives you all the prepackaged information, and it's regulated for all the biohazard things to make it okay to go in the mail. So you can buy that. You pay for the container, and then all the prepaid stuff is included in that. So when it's full, you ship it away. Or you can get any kind of holding container that, one, isn't easy to reach inside to get the syringes back out, and two, isn't easily spilled for them to spill all over the place and you have to clean them up. So milk jugs or milk cartons are usually the most recommended, but you could probably get creative and find some other kind of container that would work just fine if you needed to. Then seal that off. That can go in your trash. Some people choose to try to make the needles defective, so even if somebody finds the needles, they aren't usable for people to use your needles for delinquent reasons. And then we talked a little bit about privacy. If you want to protect your information, you can scratch out labels, your name, address, the pharmacy name, whatever information on the label, scratch it out before it goes in the trash, or actually taking the label off and shredding it to keep that protected, because people will find all kinds of information about you in your trash, and then if they are addicted to something or just into troublemaking, they can wreak havoc on you, and it makes you at risk for crime. So those are the things you can do to protect yourself. Bye!
Thanks for listening to the Pharmacist Answers podcast. The pharmacy is now closed. You can post your questions and comments on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/pharmanswerspod. Or you can email the show at pharmacistanswershere@gmail.com. You can tweet me or message me on Twitter at @SinHendrix. You can find the show notes at pharmacistanswershere.wordpress.com. Pharmacist Answers broadcasts live on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9:02 a.m. Eastern Time on the Periscope app. You can follow me at SinHendrix or view in your web browser at periscope.tv/SinHendrix. See you next time on the Pharmacist Answers podcast.